Unacademy. My name is Bhumika, and I'm starting out with my next course, which is going to be a sub series of the human physiology that I had done earlier. I could not include a lot of tutorials into those, so that is why I'm doing another course onto it. In this one, we're going to start out with the central nervous system, as you can see here, and we're going to discuss the structure of the brain. So, let's get started. Okay, before going on, let's go through some quick facts. The nervous system of the body, decision and communication center, the CNS or the central nervous system, is made up of the brain and the spinal cord and the peripheral nervous system, which is made of nerves. So in the next chapter, we're going to be discussing about the spinal cord, and then in the subsequent chapters, we'll be discussing about the neuron and how the neurons, they're able to pass messages, the reflex arc, and so and so. Together, they control every part of your daily life, from breathing to helping you memorize facts for a test. Nerves reach from your brain to your face, ears, eyes, nose, and spinal cord, and from the spinal cord to the rest of the body. So almost every part of your body, it has nerves and neurons at the tips, so that if you touch any part of your body, you know that something has touched on your body, and moreover, it's your only hand that has touched your body. That's all because of the brain that analyzes all the messages that are being passed on by the nerves. So basically, the nervous system, it contains the brain, the spinal cord, and the neurons. We're going to deal with the brain in this chapter. Alright, the sensory nerves, they gather information about the environment and send that info into the spinal cord, which then speeds the message to the brain. The brain then makes sense of that message and it fires off a response. So in a nutshell, this is how the neurons work. Then motor neurons deliver the instructions from the brain to the rest of the body. The spinal cord, made of a bundle of nerves running up and down the spine, is similar to a superhighway, speeding messages to and from the brain at every second. Alright, so coming on to the brain is made up of three parts: the forebrain, midbrain, and the hindbrain. The forebrain consists of the cerebrum, thalamus, and hypothalamus, which is the part of the limbic system or the emotional brain. The midbrain consists of the tectum and the tegmentum, and the hindbrain is made up of cerebellum, pons, and medulla oblongata. Often, the midbrain, pons, and the medulla are together referred to as the brain stem. Okay, so let us try to analyze the structure through the help of a diagram. Here we've got the cerebrum area. Right on top, the brain obviously is enclosed in the skull. The skull has this box-like chamber right on top, which is termed as the cranium, and inside the cranium, the bone is situated. The brain is situated, but we have to make sure that there are certain meninges. Meninges means there are layers under which the brain is very safely placed inside the cranium. The meninges consist of dura mater, arachnoid, and pia mater. So all these three are located in sequence to each other. First, dura mater is there, and then arachnoid is there. It's like a web-like well that separates the two layers, and then finally there's pia mater, and then we've got the brain. Alright, so as you can see here, this forebrain area, it consists of the cerebrum. Then we can also see the corpus callosum. Corpus callosum is basically a bundle of axons which connects the two hemispheres of the brain. Then you can also see some sulcus here. There are a lot of sulci in the brain. These groove-like things, these are the sulcus. And then we have the convolutions right on the top. We have a number of convolutions, we have a number of gyrus as well, and the sulci as well. So then we have the brainstem right on bottom. The first part is the diencephalon, which is right in the central portion just below the corpus callosum. Then we have the midbrain right here. Then we've got the pons varolii right here, and then the medulla oblongata, which kind of terminates into the spinal cord through the magnum foramen. Alright, right at the back we have the cerebellum, and the transverse fissure is also observed here. Moving on, let's start off with the cerebrum. The cerebrum or the cortex is the largest part of the human brain associated with higher brain functions such as thought and action. The cerebral cortex is divided into 4 sections called lobes: the frontal, parietal, occipital, and temporal. Now, what do each of the lobes do? They are associated with reasoning, planning, parts of speech, movement, emotions, and problem solving. Parietal lobe is associated with movement, orientation, recognition, and perception of stimuli. Occipital lobe is associated with visual processing, and temporal lobe is associated with perception and recognition of auditory stimuli, memory, and speech. So here we have a diagram. This whole part is the frontal lobe, then we have the parietal lobe on either sides, and then the back portion is the occipital lobe. Cerebellum is visible here, and then this side, this is the temporal lobe. Note that the cerebral cortex is highly wrinkled. Almost every picture of a brain, it shows you those convolutions, those wrinkles. Essentially, this makes the brain more efficient because it increases the surface area of the brain and the amount of neurons with it. So that is how the efficiency is increased. A deep furrow divides the cerebrum into 2 halves known as the left and the right hemispheres. The 2 hemispheres look mostly symmetrical, yet it has been shown that each side functions slightly different than the other. Sometimes the right hemisphere is associated with creativity and the left hemisphere is associated with logical abilities. Corpus callosum is a bundle of axons which connects the 2 hemispheres. We've already done this. Nerve cells, which make up the grey surface of the cerebrum, is a little thicker than the thumb, and the white nerve fibers underneath carry signals between the nerve cells and other parts of the brain and the body. So that means the grey surface, that means the grey matter is outside in the brain and the white matter is inside. Moving on to the cerebellum, which was the part which was located at the hind region. The cerebellum or the little brain is similar to the cerebrum, that has 2 hemispheres, and it is a very highly folded surface or cortex. This structure is associated with regulation and coordination of movement, posture, and balance. In Latin, the word cerebellum means little brain. The cerebellum is the area of the hindbrain that controls movement, coordination, balance, equilibrium, muscle tone. Like the cerebral cortex, the cerebellum is comprised of white matter and a thin outer layer of densely folded grey matter. The folded outer layer of the cerebellum or the cerebellar cortex has smaller and more compact folds than those of the cerebellar cortex. So this is basically similar to the cerebrum, just that it is smaller in shape, and it is located at the behind region. The cerebellum contains hundreds of millions of neurons for processing data. It relays information between body muscles and areas of the cerebral cortex and are involved in motor control. We're going to talk about the cerebellum lobes now. The cerebellum can be subdivided into 3 lobes that coordinate information received from the spinal cord and from different areas of the brain. Anterior lobe receives input primarily from the spinal cord. Posterior lobe receives input primarily from brainstem and cerebral cortex, and the flocculonodular lobe receives input from the cranial nuclei of the vestibular nerve. So the vestibular nerve, it is basically a component of the vestibular cranial nerve, and the transmission of the nerve input and output signals from the cerebellum occurs through the bundle of nerve fibers, which are known as cerebral peduncles. These nerve bundles, they run to the midbrain, connecting the forebrain and the hindbrain. So that was basically about the cerebellum lobes. Moving on, we've got the limbic system. The limbic system is also considered the emotional brain. So let's read about this. Limbic system, often referred to as the emotional brain, is found buried within the cerebrum. Like the cerebellum, evolutionary, the structure is rather old. This system contains the thalamus, hypothalamus, amygdala, and hippocampus. Thalamus, a large mass of grey matter deeply situated in the forebrain at the topmost portion of the diencephalon. So the structure, it has sensory and motor functions, and almost all sensory information enters this structure when neurons send that information to the overlying cortex. Axons from every sensory system synapse here as the last relay site before the information reaches the cerebral cortex. So that is the reason why thalamus has a very, very important role. Moving on to the hypothalamus, it is the part of the diencephalon which is ventral to the thalamus. The structure is involved in functions including homeostasis, emotion, thirst, hunger, circadian rhythms, and control of the autonomic nervous system. In addition, it also controls the pituitary gland. Amygdala is the part of the telencephalon which is located in the temporal lobe, and it's involved in memory, emotion, and fear. The amygdala is both large and just beneath the surface of the front medial part of the temporal lobe, where it causes the bulge on the surface called the uncus. This is a component of the limbic system, of course. Then we've got the hippocampus, which is the portion of the cerebral hemisphere and the basal medial part of the temporal lobe. This part of the brain is important for learning and memory, and for converting short-term memory to more permanent memory, and for recalling spatial relationships in the world about us. So you can identify the amygdala as an almond-shaped structure, and the hippocampus is more or less a seahorse-shaped structure. So here we can see that the amygdala is present here. We've got the pituitary gland right there. The hypothalamus is present here just below the thalamus. Right. Moving on, we've got the brainstem. Underneath the limbic system is the brainstem, the structure which is responsible for the basic vital life functions such as breathing, heartbeat, and blood pressure. The brainstem is made of midbrain, pons, and medulla. The midbrain or the mesencephalon is the rostral part of the brainstem, which includes the tectum, tegmentum. We've already done this. It is involved in functions such as vision, hearing, eye movement, and body movement. The anterior part has the cerebral peduncle, which is a huge bundle of axons traveling from the cerebral cortex through the brainstem, and these fibers are important for voluntary motor function. The tectum is characterized by two paired prominent swellings that together form the corpora quadrigemina, which sit on the lamina quadrigemina. The latter will be seen in the sagittal section. So the two anterior swellings, the superior colliculi, are the larger well-rounded structures that lie posterior to the pineal gland. The inferior colliculi are smaller flattened structures that protrude from the posterior end of the superior colliculi. The trochlear nerve arises from the dorsal surface of the mesencephalon just posterior to the inferior colliculi. Then we have the pons varoli, which is a part of the mesencephalon in the hindbrain. It is involved in the motor control and sensory analysis. For example, information from the ear first enters the brain in the pons. It has parts that are important for the level of consciousness and for sleep as well. So some structures within the pons are linked to the cerebellum that are involved in the movement and posture. Then we finally have the medulla oblongata, which is the structure forms with the caudal most part of the brain stem between the pons and the spinal cord. It is responsible for maintaining vital body functions such as breathing and heart rate. So this is the structure. We've got the pons here, we have the medulla here, and right on top we have the pituitary gland, the hypothalamus we did, and we have the thalamus right here, and in this region we have the colliculi. So going deeper into the diagram, we have the superior colliculi, if you can observe the bigger circles right here, and then we have the inferior colliculi, which are not as round as the superior colliculi. So together they form the corpora quadrigemina of the tectum, and these are the bodies of the roof of the midbrain. And then we have the superior cerebellar peduncle, and then finally the pons and the medulla oblongata, they arise. Okay, so in this diagram, all the major functions of the different areas of the brain are given. You can see the central sulcus here, the cerebellum's main function coordination is given, so you can obviously go through this. All of these, the brain stem has got major functions like swallowing, breathing, heart rate, and all of that. The Broca's area, which has major functions relating to speech. You need to remember all these areas which have got specific names for them. Temporal lobe has got hearing functions, and then the parietal lobe has comprehension of language. So I think you can understand all the major functions with the help of this diagram, and you need to know every part's major functions. In the examination, whenever the question arises, you are supposed to write down all the parts, draw their specific diagrams, and don't ever forget to write down the functions. If you like this chapter, then you may also watch it in Hindi just to make your understanding better. Of course, if you're comfortable in it. Please follow me. You can rate me, review me, and recommend this lesson. Thank you.